can you give a very macro level overview?
Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Okay, so you know how like when you're doing some project and you have a whole bunch of tables and figures and everything else, and you know, each figure depends on some R code that you've written, and that R code in turn like depends on some data set that you have, and that data set depends on some other R code that you wrote that actually like cleans it up from its raw source. Um, and if you something changes like like back at the kind of cleaning stage, for those changes to like propagate through, you'd have to go and like, okay, let me rebuild my data set, let me rerun my R code that generates this figure, and then finally, like, you know, the final PDF, be like, okay, let me rerun PDF LaTeX to like produce the actual end project. And that's a lot to keep in your head, and it's easy to make mistakes. Okay, so this kind of problem actually comes up in software development more generally, where some complex piece of software has a bunch of like submodules that it depends on. And so back in the 70s, developers wrote this program called Make. And the name is really spot on, because what it helps you do is like make software. And what it essentially is, it's just a plain text file where you indicate essentially like recipes for each piece. So you say like, you know, let me go back to the paper writing example. All right, so when I want to build the final PDF, what does it depend on? Well, I need that tech file, I need that bib file, right? And I need all of the table pieces of tech that go into it. And oh, by the way, I need all the PDFs, like my little like figures that I've made. They all need to be there too. So what you do is you write what's called the target. That's the thing that you're trying to create. And in that case, it's like our project.pdf. And then it depends upon a whole list of these dependencies, right? The things that it depends on. And that's like, it's the actual syntax is like the target, colon, and then a list with no commas, just spaces separating the files that it depends on, right? And then down one line, and it's either tab or 4 spaces, I can't remember. I think it might be tab. You write just like the command line stuff that you would want to happen. And so this is kind of the stuff that you would do normally. And so it's like, you know, PDF LaTeX, my file, BibTeX, PDF LaTeX, BibTeX, PDF LaTeX, you know, this kind of like, like, well, I'll just run it a whole bunch of times until things stop changing. There's some like halting problem in there. Like, I don't think no one knows how many times you actually have to run these things. But anyway, until it like stops moving around. And then, so then you take, but then it's going to ask, Make is going to complain and say, hey, what about these other things, right? What about these, like, where did this figure come from? You know, where did this, and how it's doing that is it's looking to see if that thing exists, right? So if your dependency is like our project.tech, it looks in the where that file should be that you've described. And if it's there, it says, good to go, I've got that one. If it's some like table, like results.tech, and it doesn't exist, it's going to complain. It's going to say, hey, go ahead.
If it exists, you know, sort of like locally, but you don't have anything in Make about it, can it still find it?
Yeah, well, PDF LaTeX is going to run, right. So PDF LaTeX, if it can't find the tech, that will throw the error. It'll say, hey, where's this table? Like, I can't find it, just like it would from the command line. With Make, you specify that file in the dependency line, and it's going to go look for it even before it runs your recipe. It's going to go look for that file, and if it can't find it, it's going to complain. If it can find it, it's just going to use it. If it can't find it, but here's a really important thing. If it can't find it, it's going to look to see if you have a recipe for it somewhere else, right? So it kind of processes your whole Make file and says, oh, you know, this table, like my results.tech, it's actually defined up here, which is its own target. Here's the R script that generates it. Here's the data set, blah, blah, blah. apparently I need to run this first to generate this. And so one thing that make does, it's really nice, is it essentially builds a tree that says this depends on this depends on this. And what it optimally does is when something changes, it goes back and only rebuilds the stuff where you've specified the dependency. So it's like the minimum amount of recalculation to build your thing. So like if you have this complicated project, you know, and say you have like an R script that, you know, takes an hour to run because it does something, you know, really complicated with a big data set, it will only run that file if it actually needs to. All right, and the needs to, it uses timestamps to know, like if it looks and says, okay, this is the time right now, or this was the last time this file was updated, and oh look, a dependency has changed in the interim, and it doesn't know what you've done to it. You could just touch the file and bring its like last modified timestamp up to the present. You touch the file, it will like cascade down. So everything that depends on that file will get rerun. You can, from make, you can actually kind of trigger this with a make-b, and that kind of like starts from scratch and kind of assumes sort of everything is brand new.
So is that what you like what you call make clean somewhere?
No, so when I do that, what I'm doing there is like just cleaning all the cruff out of the repository, like all the like .aux and .ttf and all this like tech garbage that I don't know what it does. Like just like get it out of the repository.
Yeah.
And then I have like make purge, where I take everything that's like a product, like a PDF, a table, and just move that all out of the repository and kind of like force make to like rebuild the whole thing from scratch. Because, you know, because what's easy to do is like you're working and you'll create some table and you'll incorporate it in, but then you'll forget to add the R to your the R that actually generates it to your repository, and then your co-author goes and builds and like, I don't have this thing.
Can't. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to? So why don't I just do like a little? I'll share my screen and do some examples. Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
So, so this is this a dot text file? Is it a dot anything? I mean, I know it has to be a text file.
It's called Makefile, just capital M.
So like when you make a Makefile, what, like I tried to make one.
It's called Makefile.
Yeah.
And it's just a plain text file. Yeah.
Okay.
Here, let me,
let's see.
I know that this seems like incredibly like fussy and like a lot of work for something, but this actually ends up solving, like just straight up solving this problem that kind of plagues a lot of empirical work. Okay, I don't actually know how to share my screen on Zoom. Let's see. This is also Linux Zoom, so it may be like weird.
I've already been converted to parameterizing, so this seems like a nice natural next step.
I feel like this guy's got like the John Horton system. He's got like all the weird things you need to do, but like swears that it actually improves your life. We should like start doing like seminars in Florida to people. And
well, that's what happens when we say improves your life, as opposed to just improves your workflow. You're like, no, it's a whole worldview.
Okay, do you know how to share
screen?
Yeah, I got to get better at this. Okay, what do I need?
There's a button that says share screen at the bottom in green.
Oh yeah, there we go. All right. Oh, and there's like a little whiteboard. Oh wow, this is cool. Okay, hold on. All right, let me make a terminal window. All right. So you can see this okay?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to topics and let's do make directory. Let's just call it MT for make tutorial. We go to MT. Okay. And then let's make a make file. So let's just try to keep this all in the terminal. So, all right. So the first thing we're going to do is have some target. All right. And so this is something we're going to create. So this could be like, you know, my cool table.tech. All right. And so, you know, I'm in Emacs and it recognizes that this is a make file because I called it Makefile. And so you see it just turned the target blue when I added that
Yeah.
colon. And then, so then I can have like my cool table.r.
So does the colon say that this is what makes this, or this is what comes out of, this is what makes this text file, or
It's
are
saying
you,
that here's this object that we're going to create, my cool
yeah.
table.tech, and these are the things that it depends on.
So it's like everything after the colon will be the list of.
Yep. And so like say there was
dependencies.
also a data set like, you know, this was like data.csv.
Yeah.
All right. And then so let's just make it a bad recipe. It doesn't actually do anything. Here. Or echo, nothing here. All right. So I'm going to close out of this, right? So see that there's this make file.
Yeah.
And let's just remember what I called everything. All right, so my cool table. All right, so now I can type make my cool table.tech.
Yeah.
All right, and I run, and what it's going to do is it's going to complain. It's going to complain that R and that CSV don't exist. It might just complain about the R thing first. Okay, so let's read the error message. No rule to make target table mycooltable.r needed by mycooltable.tech stop. Okay, so this is like a little secret trick with Linux in general or command line stuff is like always read the error messages because they're often just like telling you what the problem is. So okay, it's saying okay, there's nothing to make mycooltable.r. All right, so let's go. Now watch this. I can actually just create a file called table mycooltable.r. It exists now. I can prove this to you by doing ls. All right.
Great.
And now when I run make, what does it say? It says, oh, I don't have this data.csv thing you were talking about. Okay. So now I do touch data.csv. And just to recall, all touch does is create a file.
Yeah,
and
like an empty one.
There's nothing in it.
Yeah.
And so I run it now, and
great.
It says echo, nothing here, nothing here. Now, here's the thing. It didn't actually make anything because my recipe is not a recipe to actually do anything. So every time I run make, it keeps running this command. Because if you look, mycooltable.tech doesn't actually exist. Okay, so the recipe actually has to do something to actually make this. So let's just cat.
So it actually runs if it runs even though mycooltable.tech doesn't exist because the dependencies exist?
Yeah, it just it says, okay, all the dependencies are satisfied. Now I'm just going to run the associated recipe that you put underneath it.
Which has nothing about
yeah, it doesn't.
the text file, so it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's not magic. Like it doesn't know what you're talking about. Like if you have a recipe, like it has to know. Okay, so but here, look at this. So I'm going to cat this nothing here. I actually don't remember if that works. I don't think it does. I'm going to go do it like this. And I'm going to write it to mycooltable.tech. All right. So now, let me get out of here. When I run this now, okay, if we look, do the ls, see there's now mycooltable.tech. It actually made something. If we actually look inside of it, it has nothing here. Right. So now watch this. When I run make again, read the message. It says mycooltable.tech is up to date. It's saying that that file is newer than any of the dependencies. Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now watch this. So say now I touch data.csv. All right. Now let's just do ls where we see the timestamps. You know, yeah. Okay. So you see like
now you've now edited data.csv, and so it will have to rerun the next time you make.
Right. Now watch I run it again. It's going to rerun it again.
Yeah.
And the reason it reran it was because data.csv was newer.
Right.
Right. And then so now if we want to take and add another, we can do data.csv, and that might, not depend on anything. We can just say, echo stuff, data.csv. Okay. And now, so like, watch this. So if I do make my cool table.tech, says it's up to date. Now watch, if I remove data.csv, so now it's gone, and I go to run my recipe now. Notice there's two commands. See the echo stuff, and then it puts that into data.csv. What happened was, Make tried to make the mycooltable.tech, realized that data.csv was missing, but it doesn't panic, doesn't complain to you yet. It doesn't throw an error message. It goes and looks for it in the Makefile and says, oh, here's a recipe for data.csv. It runs that, and that's where you're seeing the like stuff data.csv. Remember, that's the recipe for data.csv. Once that dependency is satisfied, it can kind of like go back to the mycooltable and run things with no problem. All right. Let me go change my recipe. Say I have a bad recipe, it doesn't actually do anything. And then I remove data.csv. When I run my Makefile, let's see. I should have thrown an error message there. Oh, I don't think I'm sorry. I thought it would have thrown an error message because it doesn't actually have data.csv, but apparently it just looks and sees, do you have a recipe for it? And because our code didn't actually use it, it was okay. Fine. But it's looking for the recipe in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It doesn't go and check one more time.
Can you do Emacs Makefile again? I think when you do that, there's a new window pop up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. So whenever that happens, it hadn't been showing on the screen share. So I now see it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot to do the NW because it changes the focus to an Emacs window. That's right.
Oh, if you do NW, it stays in the same terminal?
That's right, yeah. If you do it like if you're like SSH into some other computer, you do Emacs, it'll automatically do that. But if you're on your own computer, if you want to keep in the terminal, you just do Emacs-NW. Pretty sure it stands for no window. Yeah, sorry. So you can see on this recipe, what I did was I just blanked out the echo. So, and so then like you can, if we want to talk about like our, something like we actually have an example like ours, what I like to do is you can define a variable, say like tables, all right? And this just says it's empty. And then you can do tables plus equal like results1.tech. And then you do like results1.tech. And then, I like to kind of keep things simple. I store all my analysis stuff in a folder called analysis. So I'll do like table results1.r. And then so one gotcha with Make is when you write these recipes, a change in directory is not persistent across the lines. So here, like I'm going to cd into analysis, and then I'm going to go table results 1.r. And so just to, if I actually, let's actually make this make directory analysis. If I do like table results 1.r, let me just open it up. And then just do like,
nice.
Actually, let's do Stargazer.
Consistency.
And then so one thing you want to do now, so if you go go back to here, if we do make results one.tech, all right, I think what's going to happen right now is it's going to complain that this is not executable. So let's see if that happens. Did I have a typo? Results. Oh, I didn't, you know what? I didn't save my make file. Here, hold on. Table. Oh, I have. What am I spelling wrong here?
Table results 1.
Oh, you know what? It's not. I'm not up a file. Sorry. Do you see the mistake?
Oh, yes. It should just be in analysis without going up a level.
Yep.
So question about that little chunk of the make file.
Here, one second. Let me just make sure this works now.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I just want to flag. So what it does, it says permission denied is it's not executable. So we just do change mode plus X. Oh, wait, it's down a level. Hold on. Analysis. And then when I make it, you see it ran that R script.
What did that do? What did that do? Why was it not executable? And then what did
do? So for make to run a file like that, so if you go to analysis, right? So you see I have this table results 1. Just you see I put that line at the top that says user bin environment R script. That's called the shebang line. I have no idea why. And this is true for R, for Python, for anything to be executable, like you have to tell that the top line is sort of saying like, hey, this is where the program is to run this kind of file. And so in our case, to run this kind of file, it's R script. But in Linux operating systems and on Mac OS as well, there's this notion that you have to explicitly say this is an executable file. And so it's not just something that's meant to be read. Like you can actually call it as a executable. And so in Linux, to do that, and it's the same on Mac, you do chmod, that's change mod, plus X, and then that file. And so now when it's like that, you can actually call it just like this from the command line, right?
So do you have to do that on top of having the shebang, or does that?
Yeah, you have to have that line.
You need to have both. Okay.
What to do with it? That's telling the computer, hey, this is the program that executes this thing. And then you also have to have the that change mod plus X. So that's like this executable bit is flipped, so it'll actually run. I mean, you can I think I can I don't know if it's UX. I don't actually know. I'm very rarely undoing this. But let me
see. Un-X.
Nope. Oh, okay. We could. Now you know what? Let's turn this into a Linux tutorial.
Yeah. Well, could you go back to the make file? I have a question about the table chunk of code.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah. I don't think it's in write-up. Okay, so I was reading something about Makefile. They make read spaces and tabs differently, and so if you have like a loose space somewhere, I don't know if it's in recipes or something, that can throw it. Do you know what that does? And
I think I don't know. I think I use tabs. I'm not sure.
I think we're supposed to use tabs. Yeah.
I would format it I would use a text editor that's that's Makefile aware, and it'll probably kind of help you through if you do something silly.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I was doing this in .text, so I'm gonna stop doing that.
Let me show you. So this what I was going here with this, so I can do like
Mm-hmm.
tables 1, tables 2, and then say, say I have some other R
Mm-hmm.
file that makes 2. That's, common source of errors is you forgot to change, like here's 1, here's 2.
Like the
And then what you
object.
can do is like when you have like my project.tech,
Mm-hmm.
rather than listing all of these tables out, you can just do this. And what it does is that like it essentially expands that tables variable. So it's like you have your whole
Right.
list. And so you'll see like when I make these make files, I'll have one
It's,
called plots,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and one called tables.
And then you're just adding to that list.
Yeah, I'm just
Every
like,
new one.
and as I go, plus
Mm-hmm.
equals, right? And I'm
Yeah.
adding them together. And then at the end, it looks like,
Mm-hmm.
well, actually what I'll have is my project PDF, and then I'll have,
Yeah.
my project, can't type,
Tech.
tech, my project, bib, and then tables,
Tables and plots.
plots, and then, like parameter files and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then like PDF LaTeX, BibTeX, all like these in
Mm-hmm.
order,
Mm-hmm.
with the appropriate.
Of what you want them to do.
Yeah. And, what I do to try to like encourage code reuse is I'll create a variable like project name
Mm-hmm.
equals, like PSM. And
Yeah.
then it'll be, you can also use this like that. You see what I'm doing? I'm using the
Mm-hmm.
variable name,
Yeah.
and it'll slide in that PSM
Yeah.
as appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then down here, you can do project name. One thing to emphasize, like when you're making these recipes, this is why you really want to be like a stickler for names. Like you want, like, and I think adapting a convention that I like is, what it's like for an R script, it's always what it is that it's creating, and then the name of the file that it's going to produce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be like plot underscore results.r, and then that that's a plot. It's going to generate a plot, and it's going to be called my results, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it helps. It just helps debugging that you kind of
Yeah.
get consistent.
Yeah.
And I mean, as this means that every table, every figure, like there's one associated file that generates it.
Mm-hmm.
And this can seem like a pain, right? Like, but it gets easier. It's in the long run better than having like one monolithic R file, that takes an hour to run, and it's too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I think like breaking it down into these little composed pieces ends up being really nice. And then what it also you can do is like, if say you find yourself using like the same kind of function or the same data sets or the same piece of code,
Mm-hmm.
you can pop that into another another file and call and make that a dependency.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not kind of the advice of like don't repeat yourself is good advice.
Yeah. Okay, so one more question about this middle chunk of the page. Could you just explain why the second line is there? It's like right, you're saying here's the file, you're giving it the pathway analysis / here's the R file, but then you have to also, I guess, are you saying run CD analysis? So like go to that file and then run.
Go to this folder, and there you're going to find this file called table results 2.r that's executable, and run it. And that is actually what's going to generate the target. So this is like, let me just be stupid for a minute here. Like say this is like, a delicious pie, right? And then you say like, flour, sugar, apples, like, da da da. Okay, all the things that you need to make it. All right, but you can't just like summon it. You have to say like, okay, take flour and add water. um, mix it up, right? Like roll it out, right? Like all the things that you need to do to
Right.
make the pie,
Right.
and then you're like dot dot dot, and bake 500.
So is it basically like the top line is just a summary? Does it not use that? Does it only use the like the recipe below?
It's just the things that actually have to go into making it,
Okay.
right? So this is like the recipe list up top, and then these are the instructions on how you use the recipe list. And then what's happening is it's like so say there's eggs, and eggs don't exist right now. Like I don't have the eggs. Well, there should be a recipe up here that's like eggs, and it's like chicken, right? It's like go to the
Yes.
coop, right? Get some eggs, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's going through and tells you like the things that you don't have, like how to build them, right?
Right.
Or how to get them, right?
Right.
And so this is where the pie analogy kind of breaks down here is that what it's really looking for too, it's like if any of these things become newer, like something changed, like we changed how we now use brown eggs instead of white eggs or something, that in make land, that's just a timestamp on a file.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so it says, oh, you know what, better go rerun the egg recipe because something changed,
Right.
right? Or I changed my chickens, and therefore my eggs will be different, and therefore my pie will be different, and it'll cascade down. I don't know if this recipe example is like more or less helpful than, than just like talking about the actual.
No, I think it's helpful because those chunks end up just looking, like I've used our Makefile for other project, and I try to sort of adapt the new project to just using that Makefile.
Yeah.
And to some extent, I mean, I think I've done some of that, but when you don't really know what each line is doing, it's hard to.
Yeah, it feels a little like magic.
Yeah.
No, and then there's all sorts of like weird stuff you can do, like pattern matching, and so you can have like one recipe that actually builds like a whole bunch of stuff. But I honestly, I think it's easier to just be like very explicit. So what I would recommend is try to make a minimalist make file.
Yeah.
Like just make like the first table or the first figure, and then commit it to the repository, and then I'll troubleshoot it.
Okay.
Oh, and then also, can you push the data set that's associated with this project?
Yes, I will do that.
Okay.
I guess so. Sort of on that note, I don't really want to do this, but I'll still ask about it.
Oh, hey, one thing. The video we've had so far could be like a good tutorial. So if we want to post it, why don't we stop here, and then we'll talk about project specific stuff.
Yes. Okay.
I will stop sharing.